Tukur Mamu, the Kaduna-based publisher, was arrested on last Tuesday by security operatives in Cairo, Egypt, for his alleged involvement in collecting ransom and taking same to terrorists in exchange for kidnapped victims. Now, some of the security sources said beyond his relationship with insurgents in Nigeria, Mamu was also arrested because of his strong ties with a terror group in Sinai area in Egypt. What does Mamu's arrest mean for the fight against insurgency in Nigeria? We have joining us in the studio a security consultant, Stephen Okori, and also via Zoom we have retired Director of the Department of State Services, State Security, rather the DSS, Mr. Mike Ejiofor, joining us to talk about this. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Yes. And Mike Ejiofor, thank you so much. If you can hear me, let's start with you. And what do we know so far about the allegations against Tukur Mamu?
Well, it's quite unfortunate. For now, the information is sketchy, except for the statement issued by the State Security Service that they should be left alone to do their job. You know, there have been some speculations, some stories being written about his arrest. The much we know, which is the public domain, is that he was arrested in Kano and brought back to Nigeria to answer questions, including his roles, because it was established that a lot of money, army accoutrements, and other exhibits were found in his house. So I think that's the statement made by the SSF, and we have to stand by that. All those speculations in the media, I think the SSS has claimed is distracting, and they should be left alone to do their job.
Taking on Mr. Okori. Yeah. Aside the allegations, how did we lead to the creation of Tukur Mamu? Because Tukur Mamu came into prominence following his involvement in the abduction of the Abuja-Kaduna train victims saga, when he began to, like, you know, act like he intervened in the whole matter. Yeah. And the question a lot of people are asking is that Tukur Mamu is a citizen like any one of us here. Yeah. What led to his creation or his involvement in all of that?
Yeah, thank you for having me once again. You see, Tukur Mamu's prominence in this discussion, I want to say, started from, if you recall, when the 28 of them or so, students of the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization were kidnapped in the same Kaduna. That was when Tukur Mamu, now I started hearing about him, because he even went as far as trying to see how to negotiate on behalf of the kidnapped students of that forestry mechanization. But before then, you know, he has close ties with Sheikh Gumi, you know, and we're all aware that Sheikh Gumi was going into the forest to meet with these criminal elements, the bandits, terrorists, to see how to find an amnesty for them, on behalf of them, for the government to grant the amnesty. So with that, you know, he became involved, you know, at some point even went ahead of Sheikh Gumi's way and manner he wanted to go about it, and now appointed himself a self-appointed negotiator, you know. So when this train issue now happened as well, he now brought himself on board to see how to negotiate or mediate on behalf of the victims of the...
You said he brought himself on board, but we do remember that on this show, yes, we had some families of the victims who came on to say nobody was talking to them. So was it possible that it was that vacuum that was created that led to, you know, the victims maybe going to him, or as the case may be?
Yeah, I want to believe that there was a discussion going on between the terrorist and Tuku, you know, for the families of the victims to begin to see how to reach out to him to discuss with the bandits on their behalf, you know. And I think the situation he had to key in or catch up, you know, to see how to begin to negotiate on behalf of victims. But you see, it goes beyond that. And that is where I feel that he has failed in trying to do what he got himself involved in. You know, because they are professionals, they are trained negotiators, you know. And for me, I discovered that he wasn't even trained in that direction, you know. So that's why you see that a lot of things failed in the process. And just the way Mr. Ejiofor said, the DSS or the SSS rather have said that they should allow them do their job, because there were evidence that they intercepted the communication between him and foreign allies, you know, in the area of terrorism and all that. And with some evidence that they have found in his office, like the financial transactions and all that, he should be able to explain how he got those monies, where he sent those monies to and all that. And some other things that they found in his office and his house as well.
Oh. All right, let me get Mike Ejiofor, being a former DSS director yourself. What are the conventions? Do we have some kind of conventions where individuals can actually come on board and play as negotiators in scenarios such as this, as we have seen or as we've found ourselves, and whether or not Tukur Mamu has breached any?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, just like you said, government all over the world, best practices, don't negotiate with terrorists. So he appointed himself. Government never appointed him. So he appointed himself to be negotiating. But the worrying aspect, you know, is people have been asking, why was he not picked up ever since? You know, because he was not sent by government. He was left alone to be doing what he's doing while being monitored. It might interest you to note that I'll tell you that these negotiators who are not trained in terms of, you know, this kidnap and terrorism, do that for their selfish reasons. In fact, like I was telling you, during my own incident of kidnap, you know, even though I don't want to mention the exact amount, a group of them, the kidnappers, told me that if I'm asked, I should tell the other group that this was how much I was doing. So there's this shortcut between shortchanging between the negotiators and the kidnappers. I think exactly that's what this man did, and it must have been monitored in the process, you know, intercepted before available information was got on him. He took this thing as a personal business, and that's what most of them do. And don't also forget that some of these kidnappers have backings. That is why funding of terrorism cannot stop. Some of them have backings of important personalities, because if you look at some of them who are kidnappers, they don't live well, they don't have, they don't look well, they're in the forest. So they are possibly being sponsored, and I'm sure the State Security Service must have found out this information and as lead and are going about it to know his contacts, his allies, and what have you.
All right, Mr. Ejiofor. The process that led to his arrest, some persons have been wondering why this was a man who was living in Nigeria, going about his businesses, but why did they wait until he traveled before he was arrested? Because a family source confirmed to our correspondent that it was shortly after he boarded the plane to Egypt that the NIA officials arrived at the airport. And when they got to the airport, they found that the plane was already airbound. They now photocopied his data page and then sent it to Egypt to make sure he's intercepted. A lot of people are wondering, why was he not picked up before then?
It depends on the time the information was gotten on his arrest. Possibly he was not wanted as at the time he traveled, but information must have been gotten that this is the activity, maybe through intercept. It's possible, maybe at the airport, he made some contacts. These are possibilities. I made contacts and when he had boarded, and they now had to wait for him to, when you are traveling, you are normally supposed to make contacts with your foreign partners or allies. So it's possible they didn't want to, the intercept was made while he was in the aircraft, and they had to ask our allies because it's not something you just do alone. They must be an international collaboration before he was picked up in Egypt. Egypt, of course, was not his destination. He was going to Saudi Arabia. So that could be responsible for it.
All right, Mr. Okori. Some persons, and those are families of the victims that were abducted, they are raising concerns about the timing. Some of them are saying that maybe he should have been arrested after all the victims have been released. What do you say to that?
Yeah, you see, when security agencies carry out their job or the task that they've been saddled to do, there's a reason why they have to go the way they are going about it. I just want to add up to what Mr. Ejiofor said. You see, perhaps they were waiting to see that he established that communication with the heads of some terrorist organizations he was going to meet in Cairo, because according to the information, he was going to have 1 or 2 meetings with some terrorist groups in Cairo. So perhaps...
But we understand he is going to Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
The Cairo was just...
Yeah, but from the information...
Connecting flight.
Yes, from the information I gathered, that he was going to meet with some heads of certain terrorist groups in Egypt, And I think they waited until they saw that he established that communication, so that they could have evidence to why they were picking him up, So to answer the question about family members wanting him to finish, you see, he's not even doing the proper thing, because there are certain features that comes with a professional negotiator. He has breached that. He has violated those features. For instance, he needed to be very confidential about the transactions going on, between the negotiator, between the terrorists and the family members and all that. He was always on the media, telling Nigerians and the family members what was going on, And he wasn't even emotionally stable. You see that the way he used to talk on TV and all that, he was putting family members more agitated, and all that. And if you discover the DSS tried to establish that he's also a collaborator and a benefactor, because the monies that were being paid for the release of some of the victims, it was established according to what the SSS said, that he partook in some of the monies, which of course a professional negotiator is also supposed to be involved in that. Honesty too was relegated, integrity was these are features of a professional negotiator. Don't forget that when victims are kidnapped, it's a market, you understand, because there's demand and supply. You must be able to agree to the demands of the terrorists for them to supply you your loved ones back, So it's a market. I'm sorry to say, but the human beings now are the commodities, So what we see here are not professional kidnappers, because professional kidnappers, if they kidnap, they see their victims as meal ticket. They are supposed to give you the best of treatment, because they know that whatever investment they are investing in you, it will come back to them in 100-folds based on what they are asking for.
But these ones are not investing, yet they are raking in the money.
That's the problem. That's why I said they are not professional kidnappers.
Well, let me get to Mr. Mike Ejiofor. Now the concern is whether or not this arrest, will jeopardize other efforts to rescue some of those that are still in captivity. For some of the families, relatives of those abducted, Mamu is more like a hero, because he ensured that their family members were released back to them and all that. So do we have negotiators, that can play this role? And if we do, then why then did we allow, the likes of Mamu come into play?
Yeah, like just my colleague just said, Mamu is not a trained negotiator. He's not one. He's a businessman. If we have professional negotiators engaged, that's the families of the victims, have professional negotiators, and they know how to go about it. But like he said today, Mamu is not a negotiator. He breached all protocols regarding professionalism in negotiation. And so I don't think in any way it's going to jeopardize the process, even though government on its part are not going to get involved in negotiating with terrorists. There must be a way out. The families can reach out to these other people to ensure that there's a safe release of their relations from the captivity. And but the joy there too is that terrorists, they are human beings. They are afraid. Government is making progress in attacks, so they might decide on their own to release these victims. These are possibilities, and I think the remaining victims shortly will be released either through intensified efforts on part of government or engagement of professional negotiators by the families of the victims.
All right, Mr. Ejiofor, so far since the arrest of Mamu, a lot of persons have been been saying that by now he ought to have been charged to court. As a former director of DSS, why do you think he hasn't been charged to court?
Investigation is a very delicate process. It's a systemic examination of information gathered to collate them, look at them, and see, so that if you just rush into court without proper investigation, you will not get good results. And don't also forget that the SSS cannot detain you or put you in custody without a court order. So a court order must have been obtained to ensure that time is given to them to conclude the investigation, so you don't rush to court like that.
So as it stands now, he has been in detention for, I think, more than 48 hours now. What's the updates as regards, the permit for him to continuously remain in detention?
That's what I said now. He cannot be kept in custody without a remand order from a competent court of jurisdiction. So the SSS normally applies to the court that they need time to complete their investigation. So whether it takes 4 hours, 28 hours, 48 hours, 1 month, until the investigations are concluded. But it cannot be detained without a court order.
Yeah, I know that yes, you need that court order, but there's a duration usually within which one will be kept in custody, isn't it? Maybe Stephen Okore will chip in.
That's the point. You see, you cannot be kept for more than 48 hours. That's what the Constitution says. That's what the law says. But I'm telling you now that if the SSS has cause to keep somebody for even a year, it must not be done without a court order. And once that order is backed by a court of competent jurisdiction, it's lawful.
All right.
Just to add to the area why they are keeping him, or they have kept him beyond the required number of hours, if the court order elapses, the SSS can go back and have a renewed order of court to keep him for the number of hours or days that they have gone to apply for. So they cannot be keeping him outside what the law stipulates.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now that he's in custody,
Yes.
What's the way forward for the families and for the victims of those still in captivity? Because a lot of families who have spoken to correspondents are worried that, okay, at this point, who do they go to? Because they've been going to him.
You see, it's the responsibility of the government to see how to rescue whoever is held in captivity, you know. So since the government has discovered that what Mamu is doing is for its interest, because the SSS have established that he's benefiting from the proceeds of whatever that family members are paying, you know. So it's not left for the government to begin to see how to go about how to release the remaining victims, you know, by using back channels that the public will not be aware of. You know, there are processes. They will have professional negotiators in Nigeria here. The government can decide to hire their service.
All right. Security operatives told reporters last week that so far the bandits have raked in, and that is the bandits that abducted the Abuja Kaduna train victims, have raked in 2.3 billion already.
Yes.
That's a lot of money in the hand of
Exactly.
bandits.
Yes.
At what point will it stop?
You see, they have raked in that huge amount of money. Just the way Mr. Mike talked about sponsors of these terror groups. You see them, those of them in the forest, they don't worth that amount of money, you know. So you see that, you agree with me that there are sponsors somewhere living amongst us, you know, driving big cars, from living in bogus houses, you know, enjoying their lives, you know, from these monies that they rake, you know. You hear them giving conditions of that they should bring the money in dollars, in foreign currencies, you know. Who gives that order, you know? Somebody somewhere gives that order, you know. So I think the security agency should see how to go beyond these ones that we see in the forest, holding these people hostage. There's somebody somewhere, people somewhere that are living very large on these monies. 2 billion or more is not small money. At the end of the day, when you see that these riffraffs are caught, you know, you hear that perhaps 200,000, 300,000 gets to them at the end of the day. So where does the bulk of the money go? So I think there's more to it, and there's more work that needs to be done by security agencies to see that the sponsors are caught.
All right. Well, thank you so much. If I may just get final thoughts from Mike Ejiofor, who is there virtually joining us. What are your final thoughts on this as regards, you know, deterrent of future occurrences where we see self-appointed negotiators come into play, such as this? How do we make sure that we are in control of things like this?
Well, just like the SS statement said, he must have a day in court, and that will serve as a deterrent to others if eventually is convicted. And I think the best approach to all this is that our security forces should do everything possible to ensure that the kidnap does not even take place, to get these people involved. And we can do that by deploying more of technology to see how this will. Like I always said, this issue of the train incident would have been avoided if we have sufficient technology. When you see them moving, and then the Air Force, you see, I've always talked about deployment of the aerial attacks from the Air Force, which is what they are doing now. And it's yielding results. We can see every day they talk about bombing of the terrorists and killing some of their leaders. So I think that's the best way to go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives on this with us. We appreciate our guest, Stephen Okore, security consultant, and also Mike Ejiofor, retired director of the Department of State Security, DSS. Thank you so much for joining.